Welcome to HR Voices, a podcast for independent HR and people professionals and the businesses they support. HR Voices is brought to you by the expert team at HR Independence Limited. We hope you enjoy.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the HR Voices podcast. I'm not going to say too much. Obviously, listening to a podcast can be done at any time, anywhere, any place, and obviously we record them all over the place. But the one thing I am going to say about today is it's very hot and sunny. Okay, so we are very pleased today to have my co-host Mary Asante with me. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Charlotte. Hi, everyone.
And we are also joined by our subject matter expert today, which is Dave Sykes of Bigmore Benefits. And we're going to be talking about how total reward packages are really good news and how you can actually enhance, sort of pay and physical rewards to enhance the offering to your employees and retain people for longer. So lots and lots of exciting stuff to talk about. But Dave, would you like to give us an introduction to you and Bigmore?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, everyone. My name's Dave from Bigmore Benefits. We are employee benefits partners, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. We're part of the Bigmore Associates group, so we're sort of multidisciplinary in many areas, but our passion is helping companies create better workplaces, essentially, through their rewards and benefits.
Brilliant, thank you. So, Mary, I know you've got lots and lots of questions for Dave that you've organised, so I'm going to hand over to you.
That makes it sound like an interview.
I know.
I haven't had one of them for many years, so don't do that. I probably won't do very well.
No, well, I think Mary's just going to kick us off.
We are going to have a conversation today around why all companies should have an employee benefits package. And I think employee benefit is one of those areas that sometimes, based on who the company is, they may think, okay, they've got salary, they've got life assurance, they've got pension. What more do they need? So it's a really interesting question or discussion from my point of view in terms of, I think, based on Dave's expertise and experience. What is employee benefits package? What exactly is it?
Yeah, good question. So employee benefits are basically anything that surrounds the lead salary or income that you're earning within a company. And it's often a big question. You touched on it straight away, Mary, in terms of saying about the salary situation. Some company owners, especially on small companies, might think, well, we pay our staff well. Isn't that enough? And actually, we don't believe it is a lot of the time, because one of the things we're quite passionate about, and we know from the statistics as well, is when you look at salary alone, we sort of attribute it to Parkinson's law. Someone might be paid enough and they might get a pay rise, but I'll probably ask both of you a question. How many times in your career have you had a pay rise and then the following month you found that you haven't actually had any more disposable income than the previous month on the lower pay rises? Has that ever been true for either of you?
I think from my experience and from the various roles I've held as HR, absolutely. And I've had cases where some employees almost will be in a position where they might want to turn down pay rise, so to speak, depending on how much it is, because we'll just all be absorbed in taxes.
You've touched on something really well there. I mean, and that's partly with an employee benefits package as well. From our side, and we're always really upfront to say to companies, an employee benefits package is not the be all and end all of making an attractive workplace. It's everything that connects it. So income's definitely one of them. Benefits is one of them, but then you've got the culture, the purpose, the senior management. You've got all of these things that go into creating a great workplace. But certainly where benefits are concerned, you should be setting them up to serve the organization and its employees. So when it comes to that, you're looking at salary alone. Well, actually, you can be creating situations where people are having more cash in hand, but actually as a company, you might be paying less overall as part of the total reward package. So the employee's better off, the company's better off, and there's a win all round. So there's numerous things that you can do in that basis from a salary perspective. And one of the things I always like with salary, when I speak about salary, Dan Pink, he wrote a book called Drive many years ago. Great book. Charlotte, you're nodding, you may have read it. But one of the key things that I took away from it is that employees, although they might think that income is really important, and it is, the most important thing is that you're paid fairly. And then it's everything that surrounds your income that helps you remain at an organization. And an employee benefits package, a good one, is obviously part of that. And when I say good one, it's the biggest part of employee benefits actually is the communication of it. And this is the biggest area that we see isn't done well enough in the UK. And that's why I think the way we operate is really beneficial to our clients, because the communication is everything. I often say it's not just got what you give, but how it's perceived. So to give an analogy of that, we've seen in the past companies that offer brilliant employee benefits package, but they're not actually received very well by employees because there's no real communication or engagement process behind it. On the flip side, we've seen companies with fairly modest employee benefit packages, but they really take time to engage and communicate the package with their employees. So therefore the employees value them. And that really is one of the key areas of what you need to be doing when you're putting an employee benefits package in place.
I was just going to say, it's fascinating because I think that communication part is really important, and it's not something a lot of companies connect with. But actually, you know, you don't want benefits that in theory pay lip service. Employees don't want benefits that are going to pay lip service to having a benefit. It's got to be something that they want to use, need to use, will use. And obviously the communication helps with that. And I guess, I mean, maybe we'll touch on it later on, but also finding out from employees and teams what it is that they do value, because you can put a raft of benefits on and nobody's engaged with them. But as you say, does that come full circle around to this idea of communication? Because actually, if you communicated regularly what you have and how you have it and how you can access it and how easy it is and what an amazing benefit it is, then maybe they're not going to be left sort of sitting on a shelf doing nothing.
Yeah, there's definitely a chicken and egg situation going on there that we see quite often. Because actually, once you communicate some of the benefits you have to employees, often suddenly they do get enthused and they're like, oh, I didn't know I have that. And then they start using it, they start engaging with it, and then it's better for everyone, the company and the employee and all round. One of the biggest, we're sort of jumping ahead a little bit, but on this subject, one of the biggest challenges we have is when we're talking to companies about their employee benefits, there hasn't been enough conversations with employees, not just with them, but how the conversations are being done. There's not enough good conversations with what those employees will benefit, will value. And sometimes it takes an education process, because if you purely go to an employee, what employee benefits do you want? The answers may not specifically be very helpful, because they don't know enough about that industry sometimes. So you have to educate them employees, and sometimes you have to ask them in a different way to strip it down to basics maybe, and say, look, what's important to you as a person or as a demographic of workforce? And then you can start building the actual benefits package around that. And one of the challenges we see, and I think it's something that HR people could really benefit from, is actually having those questions in place at the early stage, maybe as part of an HR audit, so that you can then move it on to creating something really impactful at the organization.
Thank you, Dave. You've touched on a couple of really important and interesting points that I think we can just revisit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The first one is you touched on the fact that there is a modest benefit package and probably maybe an industry best and a not so good one. So just to help our listeners understand, what would a good employee benefit package say for an SME with employees of between, I don't know, 50 to 100 or less than 50. So we're looking at SMEs up to 250 employees.
Yeah.
What would a good benefit package look like for them?
I'm so pleased you asked that, because there isn't one answer, but there is one answer that I'll give you, which I think is important. Employees value when a company is doing everything they can to help their workforce and provide for their workforce. So, and that is my answer in some respects, is if as long as the company is doing everything it can to support its employees, value that. And I think that's a good baseline to start from, because it would be very easy for me to say, well, companies should have this, they should have that, they should have perks in place, they should have provision. That stuff's all great, and that's part of the process that we go through in designing a benefits package. But ultimately, it has to be sustainable. And if companies are putting something in place for its workforce that isn't going to be sustainable, then that's going to compromise the employees themselves, because if it's not sustainable, that might mean redundancies down the line or taking benefits away. So first point is making sure that the benefits that you can do are going to be affordable to the organization, and then you're looking for sweet spots that are going to hit the spot for the demographic of workforce. That can be very different depending on the demographic, whether it's a blue collar workforce, whether it's professional services at offices, whether it's an older, whether it's a younger workforce. And we would then be looking at the workforce to then create a benefits package that we feel is going to hit the spot most likely in those areas. I hope that's helpful, because it's not specifically saying you should be putting this in place or you should be putting that in place, but it's trying to have a bit more of a targeted approach.
I think that is helpful, and that is what I would expect, because actually it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and it depends on a number of factors as you've outlined. But more often, what we actually see with through a recruitment process is the expectation based on what that specific industry or sector or companies, your competitors are offering. Potential candidates, and that sometimes set the tone or the benchmark against which employees' expectations are.
Yeah, that's spot on. I think one of the things we try to always do is to make sure that a benefits package is matching firstly, but then exceeding that of its competitors. Now, depending on the size of the company, in terms of the breadth of employee benefits, that may not be possible, but then we would argue you then have to start thinking of you then have to start thinking creatively. So whilst you may not be able to afford the breadth of benefits, what else can we do as an organization to make sure that we're exceeding that of our competitors? That might be flexible working. It might be thinking really boldly in terms of 4-day weeks, which is becoming more of a popular conversation point now. And the data is really, really positive in terms of, again, probably goes back to that Parkinson's law I was talking about earlier, but in terms of how successful that's been. So firstly, you're looking to match the benefits package of your competitors, but then think creatively on how you can exceed it and make your workplace somewhere that people want to come to.
Do you think there's a bit of an education piece missing around understanding benefits and what you can do with them? Because I know, particularly from a tax perspective, I know it's a bit dreary talking about tax, but we have to talk about things like private medical insurance. Quite often clients will say to me, well, I'd really like to put some private medical insurance in. And I say, okay, that's fine, we can look at that. But you do understand it potentially becomes a benefit in kind for the employee, and it might have an impact on their tax going, oh, okay. Oh, no, I don't really want to do that. So, and employees don't want to have an impact on their, as you say, they want to have their pay rises and their benefits. They don't want to be going backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, again, you're absolutely right. That's where a communication piece comes in. So to use that exact analogy there, where you're talking about medical insurance, I mean, if a company is going to pay for medical insurance for you, then most of the time, and listen, it does depend on the premium and the tax implication, but most of the time, you do want to be taking it up as an employee, because if you were to try and get medical insurance in the private market yourself, it's going to cost a lot more, and it often won't be to the same standard as what you're getting within a group environment. So you need to be touching on the actual benefits of that benefit rather than just purely talking about cost. You have to connect it. But yeah, absolutely, you need to mention the cost. That's why medical insurance is an opt-in benefit, because there is a tax implication. But normally we're talking to employees and we're saying, look, most of the time the tax benefit to you the tax cost to you may be 10 to 20 pounds a month, depending on your tax status, but you will not be able to get medical insurance yourself for that cost. And certainly with the NHS at the moment, then you go a little bit deeper into the reasons why. NHS at the moment had nearly, I think it was 6-7 million people on the waiting list. That's 10% of our nation for an operation or procedure. I think that was sometime last year they had that. When you look at those statistics, medical insurance suddenly becomes really valuable, because if you have medical insurance and you need it, you're going to be able to get treatment within 3 to 4 weeks, typically after being referred. Whereas on the NHS, there's a standard where you should be treated within 4 months, but actually we're hearing stories of that going up to 10 to 12 months quite regularly, depending on the urgency of a case. So you need to have these conversations with employees and give them the whole context behind it, not just purely. And I think this is my biggest bugbear about benefits in the UK, is that you touched on it earlier, Charlotte. Benefits are often just implemented as a tick box procedure rather than actually giving the context and the benefit behind why a company is doing it.
And I think that is you've touched on communication a couple of times in this conversation. And communication, as we all know, is both ways. It's not one way. So Can you elaborate on how, in employee benefits context, communication can be done or should be done in a way that is beneficial to both the employee and the employer to encourage a good uptake of the benefits on offer?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one thing I'll do, if you're happy enough to do this, I've written an article on this and I'd love to forward it to you guys, and maybe you can tag it to this because I think it might be quite helpful. But essentially, when we're looking at communicating employee benefits, we're looking at 3 mediums. And those mediums are conversational, face-to-face or virtual. The second one might be written materials. And the third one is technology. So they're the 3 areas of communication that we are personally looking at when we're delivering a benefits package. Now, the most important part of all of this, in my opinion, is that face-to-face element where you're actually having a conversation like we are now with the employee via a presentation maybe, and then you make it conversational with Q&As, because that is what actually triggers those memory jogs and that connection with the benefit. Again, I talk about things that are bugbears for me. One of my bugbears in the benefits industry is everything is being driven down towards technology. Now, we embrace technology, we really like it, but equally, it's such a saturated, distracted market that people don't have the time to be invested within certainly employee benefit technology all the time, stuff like that. And you should be using it to serve you. And it is incredible in terms of a communication tool. But our point is we're trying to bring that personal connection back to what a company is doing with its employees. There are downsides to personal connections as well, and that is not as scalable, of course, as technology. But that's where you're maybe training senior management to also deliver these key messages to the employees. So they're sort of the 3 areas that we look at. When we're working directly with companies, what we will be always doing is, firstly, we'll be rolling out the benefits package. So we'll be presenting it in the way that I spoke about and having that Q&A session where people can just ask me questions about the benefits. And then we do that for all new hires. We do that 1 point a year, but then also over the course of the year, we'll have lunch and learns on specific benefits that might need a little bit more connection or involvement. Things like EAP policies, for example, or medical insurance, where there might be a rewards package behind it. So we're trying to have those regular touch points all across the year with all of our clients for the benefits.
Great, thank you. That is quite useful and to know in terms of how you work with clients and how you personalize the service that you are offering to clients and their employees in such a way that it would allow employees to ask questions to understand the benefits on offer. And I think the learning lunches are also a great idea in terms of its bite size and people can find out more if they've got specific questions come and ask, because really, really great way to create ambassadors, because the more people know about what's on offer within your workforce, the more they'll probably be talking about it to their colleagues in a way that they would also hopefully take up those benefits. Just quickly wanted to add, you did say EAP, and I'm quite conscious that sometimes not everyone will use these acronyms and go, oh, what is that?
So, do you know, thank you for mentioning that, because that's another bugbear is people using acronyms, and I just did it myself. But EAPs are employee assistance programs, and essentially what they're there for is to provide a confidential way that employees can seek support in a range of different areas. People often associate it with mental health, but actually it could be financial difficulties, legal difficulties, and most of them nowadays will also have online support when there's support with things like nutrition or giving up smoking. So they've evolved a long way from when I started in the industry. They're really good benefits to have.
I'm kind of seeing a lot of counselling in them now as well.
Yeah, so there used to be sort of 4 to 6 face-to-face counselling sessions included within most, but some of them now will have unlimited virtual counselling sessions, which is good. Yeah, they've definitely come a long way, but again, not all of them are like for like. So that's part of the process that we would be doing with companies, is to say, look, what are the key things that you're looking at, and actually put the right one in place for our clients.
Then one of the biggest barriers from employees that I hear from time to time is the fact that accessing some of these benefits, the concern that the reason for accessing it may be revealed to the employer or to HR.
Yeah.
And is that something you come across when you're doing your learning lunches and talking to employees?
Definitely. It's a key message that we really try and hammer across to employees, that employee assistance programs in particular, if you're contacting someone, it is completely confidential. The company will never know what you're contacting them about. And that's a really important message to come across, because certainly when I started in the industry, engagement with employee assistance programs are actually really low, because there was that concern, I think. And also, I don't think people were, I think as we've gone on in the years, people are more open to talking about their challenges now, which is a great thing. But yeah, it's certainly something that we used to find, is that people weren't happy talking about their challenges, and they were worried that it would get back to their team leader or their boss or their company. So we make that really clear that it's completely confidential.
That is very important to highlight, I believe, and give people the assurance that it's totally confidential and it will be beneficial when they see the need to access it, to do so and not to worry about it. Now, we 100%. Touched on this slightly earlier on in the conversation, but I want to really sort of explore it. Is salary alone and a pension, for example, enough, or should they be enough?
No is my short answer, and I'll explain why. So it leads me on to we have a bespoke framework that we use when we're designing a benefits package for our clients, and we call it the 4 Ps. And when we were talking about it as a team and we designed it, we came up with it along the lines of tapping into the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is sort of a human psychology framework, which is a really helpful one to look at. So basically, from a benefits perspective, these 4 Ps tap into 4 things. The first P is provision. So it's looking at it and asking, what are we doing as an organization to provide long-term provision to our employees? So pension is obviously going to be one of those. Again, when we're talking about pension, we try not to use that word as much as retirement provision, because actually it's a small shift, but it means a big difference to an employee, because it's all about them preparing and planning for their future. Also within provision, you might be looking at share schemes and things like that. So it's actually giving a bit more of a buy-in for the employee. The next P is what I would attribute to the more traditional mindset of what benefits are. And the next P is protection. So what are we doing to protect our employees from ill health or worst case death? So there you're looking at the protective benefits such as medical insurance, death in service, income protection, critical illness, those type of things. The next P is preventative. What are we doing to prevent our employees from getting ill in the first place? That taps into the health and well-being section, and we've got a specific health and well-being department at Bigmore Benefits that can help clients with that. And then the last P is P for perks. What are we doing to make the workplace a fun and engaging place to be? And I used to maybe look at that slightly disparagingly, in terms of, I used to have a frustration that companies would often put a discount scheme in place and then think that was a benefits package. But actually, I have changed my mindset on it, because what perks do is they provide those engagement hits across the year, which are really important. But the long and short of it, going back to your original question, Mary, and I'm sorry I've answered it in quite a long-winded way, but there is a reason behind it. Is because when you're putting a benefits package together, we believe that you should be looking at all of these elements. And that's where your budget comes into it, your demographic of workforce, and then you're actually trying to create something that is going to tap into all of those areas within your budget as an organization.
Okay, so I'm a small business listening today, and I'm thinking, great, okay, I'm sold. Maybe this is something that I can put in place for my workforce. But It all sounds quite interesting, but nothing is free. So how expensive is this going to be for me?
Some things might be cost neutral. Let's start with that. So there's loads of cost neutral things that companies could be doing that they're not. And that's a great place to start. So I guess if we're looking at a benefits package and trying to look at all of those elements, and I'll go through that wheel, the 4 Ps, sort of one by one, and I'll try and make it quite brief, but certainly for pension, the first thing we'll be looking at for companies is it set up in the most tax efficient way for the employees? That's one way that the company can get some benefit if they're setting up a scheme via salary sacrifice, because they might be able to keep some of the employer national insurance back. And the employee gets an uplift with their pension contributions. So that could be a really quick wins. And what that means is you might be your pension, because a lot of them in the UK are set up via something called relief at source, where after you get paid, your contribution is made net of tax, and then you get the rest of it, the basic rate tax relief, paid in at the pension provider's end. The other alternative, set a scheme up via salary sacrifice, where all of your contribution gets paid in straight away, and then you can pay part of that employer national insurance saving into the pension as well, to give it an uplift as well if you want to. So it's a more tax efficient way. We do have some supporting documents as well that can help people understand that. It's quite a brief conversation to explain all of the intricacies of salary sacrifice. But then you've got protective benefits. The first place we'll always be looking at is death in service. It sounds quite a morbid one, and sometimes I hear the argument, well, we have a young demographic of staff. Are they really going to value death in service? Again, it comes down to that education piece. I believe if you explain what the benefit is to the employees and why it can be really helpful, then actually, yes, death in service can be a really valuable benefit for all employees. To use a quick example, about 4 or 5 years ago, one of our clients had a young employee who passed away on a football field from a heart attack. He was only 22 years old. That death in service policy, because he was a foreign national, It provided security in terms of repatriation of body because the family could afford to then repatriate the body. It provided bereavement support to that employee's team. So it goes much further than just being a death in service scheme. And then we move on to that preventative part, which is the health and well-being aspect. Most death in service schemes will actually have an employee assistance program attached to them, which is provided as free. So that sort of creates that supporting employees in that element. Then lastly, perks wise, you can do loads within a workforce just by being creative that don't have to cost a lot of money. I use a really quick example. On a Thursday at work, we do something called a leave work early game. Whoever wins gets to leave work early. It's as simple as that. It costs the company a minimal amount of time, but it creates an engagement point for the company and the employees, creates a bit of fun. And actually, it doesn't cost much for the employee and the employer, and the employee gets quite a lot out of it. So loads of little things that you can be doing. And that's obviously a real snapshot of what you can do. And we would clearly go into a lot more detail if we're working with an organization, but it shows you very quickly around that wheel how we could help a company.
Very good. And I think, thank you for explaining that, because it really sort of goes to show the breadth of seeing a benefit such as simple as, let's say, for example, death in service, and what it actually provides, rather than, oh, it is just a lump sum paid at the end of it to a benefactor or something like that. So it's really important, and I think useful for people to know that actually these benefits come as a total package in the sense of it, rather than just the name might suggest and the one thing that comes to your mind. So how can one get started, and how can an SME or an employer get started, or if somebody has something in place that they might want to review, how can they start? How can they go about it?
So the first, from our side, if someone was to engage us in any way, a conversation with us is a great place to start, I would argue, because the first thing we will do for you as an organization is we will, no obligation or cost, we will give you a draft design and draft costs of what a benefits package might be, cost to you and be, and that would be on a lower level and a higher level. So we're straight away saying, because a lot of the time companies don't have a budget, or they don't know what the budget is, because that would be our first question that we might want to ask. But if we were to say, what is your budget? Most companies will say, we don't know, certainly in the smaller company space. So that's a great place to start. We say, okay, for your demographic of employees, a lower level employee benefits package might cost this, or if you want something a little bit more comprehensive, it might cost this. And then if a company wants to proceed with a more comprehensive proposal, we charge for that. We charge a nominal amount, and it's only, I think, £345 for a comprehensive proposal. But that there will be a really comprehensive design and proposal as to what you should be doing as an organization. Obviously, there'll be dialogue and conversations, and we'll have staff data to make sure that we're getting it right. But that's a great place to start. And for a company, even just as a small company, that's money really well spent, because even if you don't want to proceed with us, and there's never an obligation, we always make that really clear. Even if you don't, there you will have a document that will give you a guide of how you can move forward as an organization with your benefits journey.
Great. I think that is all from me for now. I'm wondering whether Charlotte has any questions, because it's a really important topic, and probably we can spend a whole day or more talking about it, but we've only got limited now airtime for the purposes of the podcast anyway. So yeah, thank you for that, Dave. Charlotte, do you have anything you want clarifications or questions?
Just my observations are, that it isn't one size fits all. And I like the fact that actually we can adapt and we can be creative within what can be provided. I think there's probably a preconception, which we've talked about before, about the fact that, a benefits package is pension, life insurance and salary. And actually it's so much more, and it could be so much more. And if you can take account of the demographic and you can take account of the creativity of the organisation, what the organisation does, how they want to be known, you know, what they want to be known for, why and how they want people to stay and be with them, and, you know, what's important to them as a company and their company values and ethos. If we can then take some of that and bring it down into the offering for, you know, reward and benefits, then that just all sounds like really good stuff to me. It's the sort of stuff HR people love.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we have, I think, well, HR staff sometimes have, or consultants, is they don't know where to start with the conversation. So hopefully this has helped. But one area that we always think is quite helpful is to include it within your HR audit. I don't know, you might be able to tell me, actually, do you think HR consultants do that enough within an HR audit?
I mean, I do a self-assessment one that I do through my website, which includes, you know, have you got a rewards and benefits package to support, you know, to support your total reward. So,
Great.
And it's something I would talk to clients about, definitely. And also when clients say they're going to take on their first employee, I'll always talk to them about, well, you know, what are you going to offer them? Is there anything else you want to offer them? You know, because we can do a holiday package and enhance that. We can do sick pay and enhance that. You know, what else, the pension you need to do, you know, is there anything else you want to offer?
Yeah.
You know, budget is always a consideration.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, on that budget point, actually, so I know we're sort of closing off, but actually one thing it's quite important for small business owners to understand, they often are unaware of this, often they can be putting a benefits package in place with their interests at heart as well, which will actually cost less than individual protection, for example, that they might be purchasing on their own. So that's another avenue for certainly small business owners, is to say, look at it within a group environment and make your company work for you as well. Obviously, you want it to work for your employees, but also make it work for you, because, you know, if you're going to be entrepreneurial and start an organization, take all of that risk, make sure that you're getting the benefits out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about to grow my team, and it's something that I'm sort of considering and thinking about, okay, if I'm going to grow the team, why, you know, how am I going to encourage someone to come and work and stay with me, and what's important to me? And many of our members are going to be independent practitioners that might have 1 or 2 employees, or they might be just working with associates. But I think we don't always understand, as an independent practitioner, whether a benefits package is open to us. I mean, obviously, depending on how you structure your business and how you pay yourself, and whether you do have a salary or don't have a salary, or just do dividends, things like that, there's things to consider. But
Yeah,
actually, even from the micro business perspective, I think it's still a conversation and a consideration that we should be having.
Definitely. You can put a benefits package in place now for 2 to 3 staff, a group benefits package. So any owner should look at it. And that sort of takes us full circle, really, why all companies, in my opinion, should have some kind of benefits package.
Excellent. I think a good note to end today's conversation on. Thank you very much, Dave. It's been a really engaging conversation. Lots of insights into employee benefits and why it's important for all organizations, regardless of your size, whether you're just starting out or whether you're very well established, to think carefully about the package that you might want to put into place for your employees, because it's absolutely essential and it helps set you apart from your competitors, especially when it comes to talent retention, attraction of talent, and employee engagement, and overall productivity as well. Because if you look after your employees, they will invariably look after you as well. So
that's a great point, because the sort of connected words with employee benefits are always retention and recruitment, but actually the happiness and productivity of your employees, arguably for me, is the biggest benefit. Is if they're happy where they are, yes, you'll retain them, but you're going to make sure that they're going to be much more invested within your organization.
Great. Thank you ever so much for joining us today, Dave. We really appreciate your time. And obviously, you know, you're supporting some of our members within the HR Independence platform as well. So loving that. So Thank you everybody else for listening and for tuning in. And of course, if you would like to get in touch with us, then please do contact us at hrvoices@hrindependent.co.uk. And if you'd like to be a guest, or if you'd like to come on and talk to us or share something with our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks all. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of HR Voices. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Tune in next time.